These conversations comforted both Victor and Dmitri. Victor's behavior at the hospital had changed. Now he was more open, more talkative. Nurse Sarah had noticed this. "Victor, you seem happier lately." "Yes, Sarah, I think I've made peace with the past." "How wonderful. We all should have such moments." Victor smiled, a real smile, for the first time. A few months later, Dmitri came to the hospital with his wife Elena and daughter Anya. "They want to thank Victor," Dmitri said. Elena took Victor's hand. "Thank you for saving Dmitri's life." Victor blushed. "I'm just a cleaning staff." "No," 7-year-old Anya spoke. "Are you an angel?" Papa said so. Victor bent down and kissed the girl's cheek. "No, princess, I'm just a man who made peace with his past." Victor Petrov, or Alexander Volkov, is now 69 years old. He still works at St. Mary's Hospital. Now he's not just cleaning staff, but also a volunteer translator, and helps families of Russian patients. Dmitri visits regularly and calls Victor Uncle Victor. The past cannot be changed. Victor can never act as if he never killed Igor Nemenov, but he can change the future. The secret he'd hidden for 25 years had finally lost its weight. Sometimes the greatest punishment is to continue living, and sometimes the greatest forgiveness comes from the victim's family. Victor's story teaches us this: our past doesn't have to define us. Atonement is possible, and sometimes our enemies can become our allies at the most unexpected times. If this story touched you, write your thoughts about Victor in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Human Stories, because everyone has a story worth telling. Until the next story, if you've met someone like Victor in your life, someone carrying a secret, trying to make peace with the past, remember to show them mercy, because we all have sides that need forgiveness. For Heinrich, this wasn't just work. It was a personal mission. Atonement for his father's crimes. The next day when Sarah came to the library, she tried to act normal with Heinrich, but she couldn't. She kept looking at him, trying to ask questions. "Mr. Weber, what part of Germany are you from?" "Near Munich," Heinrich answered quietly. "Where was your family during the war?" Heinrich paused. "Difficult times, Sarah. I don't like to talk about it," Sarah insisted. "You saw post-war Germany. As a witness, how did you feel?" Heinrich took off his glasses, cleaned them. "Some experiences aren't spoken about, Sarah. They're lived, tried to be forgotten, but never really forgotten." This answer made Sarah even more suspicious. When Sarah returned home that evening, she researched Simon Wiesenthal online. She found the 1970 Buenos Aires operation. The news talked about Klaus Brenner's capture, but didn't give names of those in the operation. The next day, she examined Simon Wiesenthal's personal files in the library archives. There were letters from 1970 to 1975. In one it said, "My Heinrich, thank you for your success in Buenos Aires. Your mission in America is even more important." Sarah read, with her heart pounding. Date, 1975. Signature, Simon Wiesenthal. The same year, Heinrich Weber had started working at Columbia. Sarah was now certain but couldn't ask directly. She made a plan. "Mr. Weber," she said, "my thesis advisor wants to meet with you. He'll ask questions about Holocaust experts." Heinrich's face changed. "What kind of questions?" "Simon Wiesenthal's working methods, how Nazi hunters worked." Heinrich stood up. "Sarah, I won't be able to help with these subjects, but you're very knowledgeable about this subject." As if ... As if what? Sarah gathered courage. "As if you lived through it personally." Heinrich looked at Sarah for a long time. Then he spoke in a very quiet tone. "I did." That evening, after the library closed, Heinrich and Sarah were alone. Heinrich had finally decided to speak. "My real name is Heinrich Zimmermann," he said. "I was born in 1951. My father was a Nazi party member." Sarah couldn't breathe. "At 16, I learned about my father's crimes. He was an SS member, worked in concentration camps. That day, I promised myself, I will atone for these crimes." Heinrich took out an old photograph from his desk, black and white, showing his father in SS uniform. "I found Simon Wiesenthal in 1968, and I told him who my father was. I said, I want to atone for these crimes. Simon trusted me. In 1970 came the big operation. Klaus Brenner, a commander who killed thousands of people in Auschwitz, was hiding in Buenos Aires." Heinrich closed his eyes, remembering. "I went to Argentina with a false identity. I introduced myself as a Nazi sympathizer. I got close to Brenner. I gave him confidence. Then, I waited 3 months. I learned Brenner's house, his routine. Then one night I captured him with Mossad agents." Sarah listened as if mesmerized. "When Brenner was captured, he looked at me and said, 'You're one of us too.' I replied, 'No, I'm your opposite.' Simon gave me a bigger mission. Go to America. Find the Nazi officers hiding here. And you accepted? Of course. This was my duty. My father's atonement. Heinrich pointed to the library shelves. I worked here for 45 years, but my real job was different. Finding Nazi war criminals. How many did you find? 23 people. All were brought to justice, Sarah asked in amazement. Is it still continuing? Heinrich nodded. They're very old now. Most are dead, but I don't forget. Heinrich took Sarah to the special archive room. He took out files from a locked cabinet. This is my real work, he said. The files contain Nazi war criminals' identities, their locations in the U.S., false names, FBI reports, Mossad correspondence, court records. Did these people pay for their crimes? Sarah asked. Most, yes. Some died in prison. Some were taken to Israel. A few died before being caught. Sarah opened a file. Inside was a photograph of an elderly man. Who is this? Dr. Wilhelm Kessler. He was Mengelé's assistant. He did medical experiments on children. Sarah's stomach turned. I found him in Florida in 1987. He was living with a false identity. I reported him to the FBI. He was arrested. Why did you hide it all these years? Sarah asked. Heinrich looked out the window. Because sometimes justice comes secretly. Media, recognition, these aren't important. What matters is catching criminals. But you would be considered a hero. No, Sarah, my father was a murderer. I'm just paying his debt. Heinrich took out another photograph from his desk. It was a photograph of small children. These are children my father killed. Their ages ranged from 5 to 12 inches. Sarah started crying. Every night I see them in my dreams. They look at me. They ask, what did we do to your father? Simon Wiesenthal died in 2005, Heinrich continued. He called me before he died. What did he say? Heinrich, you are my most valuable assistant, but it's enough now. Live your own life. And you? I told him, Simon, I can't stop until this work is finished, until the last Nazi officer is caught. Heinrich closed his eyes, remembering. Simon laughed. You'll never stop, because this isn't your atonement. It's become your identity. Sarah thought for a long time. Then she asked Heinrich, can I write this story? Heinrich was surprised. What? I want to change my thesis. I want to write your story. The story of Nazi hunters. Heinrich shook his head. No, Sarah. This must remain secret. But people should know. They should know there are heroes like you. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man paying his debt. Sarah insisted. How many people know your real identity? Simon, me, and now you. That's not enough. Finally, Heinrich agreed, but had conditions. If you're going to write the truth. I'm not a hero. I'm a man who dedicated his life to seeking justice because of his father's crimes. I understand. And names must be changed. We must protect people who are still alive. Sarah agreed. One more condition. This story won't be published while I'm alive. Why? Because I'm still working. I'm still searching. Sarah was surprised. You're 73 years old. Are you still searching? Heinrich smiled. Sarah, justice has no age limit. Heinrich took out another file from his desk. Last file, he said. Hans Müller, 94 years old. He worked in Treblinka. Lives in Florida. What will you do? I'll ensure he's caught. Sarah, but at that age, the man is already at death's door. Heinrich answered seriously. Sarah, justice can wait, but it never gives up. 6 months later, Hans Müller was caught. At 94, he faced trial. Heinrich sat in the courtroom. No one noticed him. Müller was found guilty, but died in the hospital before sentencing. Heinrich called Sarah that night. It's finished, he said. The last man was also found. What will you do now? I don't know. For 45 years, I only did this. Sarah, time for a peaceful retirement. Heinrich laughed. Sarah, my peace became justice. Now I don't know how to find real peace. Heinrich Weber continues to work at Columbia Library. At age 75, he no longer actively hunts Nazis, but helps students doing historical research. Sarah's thesis, Silent Justice, a Nazi hunter's story, received great praise. Heinrich's real name was kept secret. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the silent ones. Heinrich Weber brought the world's greatest criminals to justice for 45 years without telling anyone. His story teaches us that justice requires patience, requires courage, but most importantly, requires determination. Heinrich chose what was right, despite his father being a Nazi. If this story were true, it would remind us that there are hundreds of silent heroes like Heinrich. They don't appear in media, don't receive awards, but they make the world a more just place. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, when history is forgotten, it repeats. Subscribe to Human Stories to ensure stories like this continue to be told. Until the next story, if you know someone like Heinrich in your life, someone who quietly does what's right, tries to correct the mistakes of the past, show them respect, because real heroes are usually the quietest ones.